Hey guys, and welcome to the first session of the Homeschooling the Hard Subjects 2.0 webinar series that we're doing. If you're not familiar with us, then you will know that you won't know that every year, right before the homeschool collection, which is coming up at the end of July, we do a webinar series called Homeschooling the Hard Subjects, where we bring in experts to teach parents or kids some things about how you can make hard subjects really fun to teach or to learn. Last year, we got great feedback. This year, we changed it up and we're doing it for kids. So I'm really excited about that. If you don't know who I am Brooke. I'm the owner and creator of Homeschool Resource Co. I have 5 kids. So if you see one of them run back here or something crazy happen, it's just real life. So bear with us as we get through this. My littlest one just came in, so she's playing with a piano. If you hear any noise. Anyways, I have Meryl here with me from Funda Funda Academy. So Meryl, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Funda Funda?
Well, hi everybody. I'm super excited to be here today. So I started off teaching at my local co-op. That's how I got into teaching at all. And then through that, eventually started with Funda Funda Academy, which is an online school for homeschoolers. You just pick up different subjects you want to do. I've got middle school and high school. I'm not the only teacher, obviously. There's a lot of other teachers. Our classes are asynchronous, which means there is no live component, which means I'm not used to doing this live like this. We want the classes still to be very engaging. So although they're asynchronous, they are not boring. We use a lot of games and interactive websites, and we use really everything that the internet gives us. We have unit studies, which are for normally 4 through 8. There are some that are 6 through 12. And in fact, you got discount codes on the 2 World War II ones that I created a few years ago. And so we have those, which is kind of like it's a asynchronous and not a live version of what I'm going to do today. It's similar ideas where we try to give you interesting, fun things to study and cool ways to do it. And then for high school, we have full-on credits. Again, done in an interesting way, and the students actually do interact with each other, even though it's not live. So come and look and check us out, fundafundaacademy.com.
I always go to talk before I unmute my microphone. I will do that. I don't know how many times here, but my little one found a maraca that she's shaking around. So I said, I better mute this. So I am going to exit myself off of the screen and let Meryl take over. Today, we're going to be talking about secret agents, World War II spies at Camp X. So she's going to take over that. I am going to be here in the chat monitoring for you. If you have any questions, please drop them in. They will appear on the screen for Meryl to answer for you. We are also live on Facebook, so you can catch us there as well. And I'm monitoring that chat as well. So please answer her questions as she goes through, interact as much as possible, because that's what makes this experience really fun. So I'm giving it over to you, Meryl, and I will be in the background if you need anything.
Thanks. All right, so before we start, a few things. So I have a cat or 2 cats, but one of them may come and visit. So if it does, it's Felix. He could just come jumping in here at any moment. So he's not a spy. He's just what he looks like. Secondly, if you don't have pen and paper with you right now, can you just wave at your mom or jump up and go grab some? You are going to need it as we go through this class today. Thirdly, I am used to teaching live at our co-op. I will ask questions and people will answer. Now, you can't do that today. There are too many of you, but you can answer in the chat. And I'm very excited to see how many of you have been typing in the chat. So please, as I actually ask questions, please can you answer them? Doesn't matter if your spelling is bad. It doesn't matter if you are wrong. Just give us some interaction back and let's make this class fun and that you're part of it. I'm not going to be just lecturing you the whole time. That would be really boring. And you're going to get some chance. That's why you need a pen and paper. You are going to need to do some spy things as we go along. Now, I know many people think history is a difficult subject to teach and they find it very boring. I know my mom used to hate history and she thought it was just all a lot of dates. Well, it's not. History is about stories, about people and things that happened in the past. And today we're going to be doing just that, following some stories. So, Brooke, can you put us up the slides to start? Okay, it doesn't let me do it, so I'm going to have to ask Brooke to do this on and off for me. Okay, so today we're going to be learning about Camp X, and you're going to find out more about Camp X as we go along, exactly what it is. But before we do that, let me just get on to my next slide. All right, let's see if I can operate these slides, or maybe Brooke, you're going to be operating them. It's not. Okay, there we go. Okay, we're going to start off and we're going to talk a little bit about World War II before we can talk about what the spy camp was. Right, Brooke, you can pull the slides down for a second now. So the first thing is, I know I saw in the chat earlier that some of you have been studying World War II. Can anyone tell me when World War II started, the year it started? Let's see if we know. Anybody giving me? You can guess wrong. Let's just see. Anybody have any idea when World War II started? All right, we're not getting any answers on this one, but I can tell you, okay, it's 1939. Now, World War II came after another big war. Who knows what that war was? So you're all now being very, very quiet. This is not good. Okay, so 1939, maybe it's just a bit of lag here. Okay, 1939 was correct. So what war came before World War II? World War One. Yes, well done. World War One was first. Now, after World War One, people really they called it the Great War, and they thought it was the war to end all wars, and they were not interested in any wars. However, it wasn't that long afterwards when World War Two starts. I'm not going to have a lot of time to talk about how it all started, but just briefly, World War One had been largely it had been fought in Europe, and it had been fought with Germany and some of its allies against England and France, and eventually America got involved as well. And it was finally settled at the end of the war, and Germany was fairly heavily punished for their role in causing so many deaths. Why do any of you know why World War II came about? Now, it's a very complicated thing, and obviously people have, spent years writing papers, etc. But what are some of the reasons why World War II started a couple of years later, not that long afterwards? Okay, let's see what we've got here. Okay, I see. The first one is Hitler wanted to take over the world. Yes. So Germany at that time was headed by a guy called Hitler, who wasn't actually German. He was actually Austrian. But he had managed to get himself into Germany and get himself into a position of power. And he was very power hungry. But how did that happen? How did somebody just decide, I'm going to basically try and take over everything, especially as we've just had a world war? All right. Let's see. Okay. Okay, he didn't like the Jews. You're right. Since that was part of when he started taking over the world, he started trying to wipe out the Jews. Anybody else? Let's see what else. Okay, everybody knows Hitler was obviously a big reason. So what had happened, remember I said to you at the end of World War One that they actually punished, the rest of the world punished Germany fairly badly. And this was one of the big problems with why World War II happened. Because you think about it, if you feel like you've been really harshly treated, and that's how the Germans felt. They felt that even though they had caused the problem, they had been punished more than they should have been. And it really messed up the economy, which meant that a lot of them were very poor and they were struggling. And they were kind of upset that their lives were pretty hard. And so when Hitler came on, he appealed to their sense of national pride. It's called nationalism. When you love your country too much. Patriotism is when you love your country in a good way. But nationalism is when you believe that your country is better than everyone else. And that's what Hitler kind of did. He kind of told everybody that we've been treated badly. Yes, I saw somebody said went into depression. Yes, exactly. Their money wasn't worth very much. And they were pretty upset. And so he started saying, we're actually better than all this. And he started making the people feel a national pride again. And he used that as a way to start to build the people up, and he started to build the armies up, and the people again felt proud to be Germans, and he tapped into that. And he first went and annexed, just it's like, if you're an older brother and you just kind of take your little brother's toy and you just say, that's mine now. He did that to Austria. It's called the Anschluss. And he started by doing that. And so these are how it all happened. And then, as somebody said there, he invaded Poland. Well done. That was the first place he invaded in September of 1939. He just went in and said, I'll have this, please. And at this stage, the rest of the world had to take note. right? Until now, he could just kind of stay off, and people, particularly Neville Chamberlain, who'd been the leader in Britain, he just kept thinking that this wasn't going to happen, and nobody wanted another war, so they had turned a blind eye, and they hadn't just said, Hitler, that's enough, you cannot do these things. But when he invaded Poland, then they had to actually start waking up. And so that's when England then gets involved in the war, France gets involved in the war, but also Hitler invades France. He invades a lot of the other countries, and we're not going to go into all that. If you buy unit studies, or if you're studying it at home, reading books, you'll find out more about that. So we're going to take it up now. We're going to start from the fact that Hitler has now started the war. We've got England and we've got France involved. Was America involved at the start? Let's see. Who knows? So we're now in 1939. In fact, our story is going to start at about 1941, when the Camp X is created. Was at the beginning of 1941? No. Okay, correct. Everyone's saying no, no, no. America was not. America was neutral, and that's going to be important to our story today, because in 1941, when Camp X was actually created, America was still neutral. Okay, so Brooke, if I can get the slides back up again. We're going to watch now a short video. The videos today are all short. Don't worry, some of them look like they're longer, but I'm just showing short pieces. And this is going to show you a little bit about how they got involved. Okay. I'm struggling again to make, oh, there we go. Okay, here we go. Now let's play the slide. Nope. All right. Brooke, do you know why this is not actually playing? No, back to slide 3, and this is a video. It should, nope, not that. All right, Brooke is
I think it has it set up as a PDF slide and not a video slide. If you could share your screen wherever you have the slides and play it from there.
Okay, let me try that. Okay, so let's go present, video file, share screen. Let's try this. Okay, now we're read. Let's go to the beginning. Okay, let's try. Okay, can you all see my screen now? Brooke, is that good?
Yes, we're good.
Okay.
The year is 1940. Europe is overrun by Nazi forces. The United Kingdom and its allies are in a desperate position. The Battle of Britain reaches English shores. Faced with overwhelming odds, Prime Minister Winston Churchill directs that a new organization, the Special Operations Executive, or SOE, be established. They will bring the fight to the enemy. For our country, this meant recruiting unique Canadian men and women who would sacrifice everything.
Okay. All right. Okay, it's jumping ahead again. I'm having problems here. Right. So, okay, I can't see you anymore, but you can see me, correct? Okay, so I'm going to actually need to get back into StreamYard, though, to actually see what you're answering. Okay, Brooke, pull up the slides again from your side, and okay, there we go. So this is where, so you see that they started up with the SOE, which were basically, it was basically the secret agents that Winston Churchill created. And one of the places, they actually had a training camp in England. And if you find this interesting, there is a Netflix series called Churchill's Secret Agents. I think that's what it's called, where there's actually, it's like a reality TV show where people go and get trained as they would have been at that time. So I really enjoyed it. And I think you guys may enjoy it too. Definitely, I think everybody listening, I don't think there was anything inappropriate, but parents, you can just go and check that one out. Okay, sorry, I just got a phone call. I'm just getting out of it. Okay, so this is where they created Camp X. It was in Canada on the northwestern shore of Lake Ontario. And they set up this camp to train spies. After they'd set up the SOE were basically going to send their spies to be trained in Canada. Now, so some of them were also sent to England. But why do you think the training camp was set up in Canada? Oh, somebody's visited Camp X, yes. Why do you think it was set up in Canada? Has anybody got any guesses? Okay. I'm still confused about what you're seeing on here because there was no war there. Yeah, that was definitely one of the things. Yes. It was away from the front. Yes. Right. It was free. Why didn't they set it up in America? Okay. All right. Think about now America. Do you think America was friendly, was rooting on? Because remember, they were neutral. Do you think America was rooting for Britain or for Germany, for Hitler? Who do you think America wanted to win? Okay, they were neutral, yes, and there was a big reason why this was in Canada. Because America was still neutral, but they were hoping for Britain to win, and they kind of knew. FDR was the president at the time, and they kind of knew that at some point they were probably going to have to get involved. And so, but America didn't have any spies really, because they'd never fought a big war like this. Now, they had spies over the years. We'd had the Civil War spies, etc. But Britain had been involved in many more wars over the years, and their agents were highly trained. So the Americans realized they probably needed to start getting people trained. But they were neutral, so they couldn't do it in America, and they couldn't let people know that they were busy training people to perhaps enter the war. So Canada was a great place to train the British, the Canadians, and also the Americans, because it was right close and nobody knew what it was. Now, nobody knew what this was. It was I'm going to show you a little video in a second again, but this was a fantastic place to be, because the area where it was remote. Nobody really knew where it was. And it was swampy. It also had open land. It had rocky areas, and it had forests. All the places that they'd need to train on, so that when they went into enemy territory, they'd be ready for it. So it was a really good location. So now let me move on and show you this next little video here. Okay, so now I need to go back to my slides. Okay, this is all right. Brooke, are we back at my slides? Can you see
Yes,
mine
you're good.
again? Yes. Okay, good.
It looks like a farmer's field on Lake Ontario. And that's what it once was. But in terms of Canadian history, it's a lot more.
The agents who were trained at this camp, of the age between 20 and 25 years, were told that once they went on their mission behind enemy lines, it was so dangerous that they had a 50-50 chance of survival. There were no signs up. There were no identifying marks of the property at all. So the locals just knew that it was a military base, and that was it. That's about the extent of it.
All right. Okay, so I'm getting back. Okay, so Brooke, we can go back to me. Okay. All right. And can you pull up the slides now? Because I haven't got any videos for a little while. Thank you. Okay. So what do you think was taught to these secret agents at Camp X? They were taught a lot of different things to be successful spies. So I'm hoping that the chat is going to go crazy as you all start to think of all the things they needed to be taught. Typically, the people would come there for about 5 or 6 weeks, very intensive training, and then they would move on to actually go and fight. All right, so let's see. What all would they need to do? Okay, technology. Yes, they would need to learn to use some of the technology. And we're going to look at some of these things in a lot of detail. How to shoot. Yes, they're going to need to learn to know that. Okay, be training them how to sneak up on the enemies. Yes. To do well in battle, right? Sabotage. Yes, we're going to be talking about that. Stealth. Yes. Okay, what else? What do you think an agent is going to need to know how to do? Spycraft. What is spycraft? What is that? What are they going to need? How to dodge weapons. Yes. Acting. There's a good one. Yes, we're going to be looking a little bit at that too as well. How to send secret messages. Yes. To bring back information. Right. Okay. Ambush. Sometimes, yes, they needed to do that. They needed to learn how fighting. They needed to know how to kill silently. That was a big thing they actually had to learn how to do. Some of the things we're not going to look at in detail, but they needed to learn orienteering, which is being able to use maps. You guys are so used to just taking out a phone and using Google Maps, but they would have to have used real maps and be able to find their way around. Yes, they would have to have learned, they would probably need to learn things like repairing vehicles and things. They didn't have time to actually learn other languages. So sometimes, depending on the languages they knew, those would be the places that they would be sent. All right, so I think you've thought about a few of them, and we're going to be talking about a few more as we go through this. Now, the one thing was during the day, they'd be spending the whole day being trained. When they would get back from training at night, they would walk into their barracks where they were living, and they were expected to notice if anything had been moved or changed. As a spy, you have to be hyper aware of everything that's around you. So you now are going to do your first little task. Are you ready? Let's see if you would have been as aware as they had to be. So let me see if my slides work. Okay. All right. You're going to have about a minute, I'm looking at my watch, to look at this picture. Look at it carefully, and let's see how well you can remember what's on this picture. Something is going to change, and I'm going to see how well you've actually paid attention. So no cheating and writing this down. Okay, I can see. No, I can't really see, but don't write down anything. This is a memory test because that's what spies had to do. They couldn't be writing things down. They had to be constantly aware of their surroundings. Somebody wrote there, and they had to notice what was different, and because this could really be life or death to them. So I'm going to give you just a few more seconds, and now I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay. There are a few things missing now that were on the previous slide. Do you know what they are? Write them on your paper. Don't put them in the chat yet. Just write them on your paper so that everybody get a chance to think about it and see if they can figure out what's missing. I'll give you a few more minutes. Okay, just hold on a second. Don't write in the chat yet. Let everybody just give a few minutes to think. Okay. Yeah, you guys aren't paying attention. You're all putting it in the chat when I'm saying don't put it in the chat. Spies who didn't follow instructions, that wouldn't have worked either. So you'd also be failing. Okay, now you can put in the chat if you can think what's missing. Okay, so I can see a lot of you are getting this correct. And I'm just going to go back and we're going to see. If I can go back. Okay, do you see what's missing now? There is a flower. There is an envelope and there is a banana that I took out and it's missing from the next one. Okay, did you get them all? Tell me yes or no in the chat if you managed to find all three of those. If you said letter, that's also fine. A letter, an envelope, whatever else. You missed the banana. Okay, so the banana was the one. Okay, so, all right, now you know. And I want you, as you drive around town in the next few days, just really be aware what's in your living rooms. If there are moms on here, hey, this would be fun. Maybe just change something in your living room or in your dining room or in your kitchen and see if your kids notice and ask them. You can carry on being spies all week. Okay, next fun one. Some of you said you need to learn how to use tech, and some of the tech that have to learn was all the special spy stuff. Now, I don't know if my face is still hiding the bottom one, because you can move it if it is. But here we have 5 different items: a pipe pistol, a button compass, a toothpaste tube of plastic explosives, a cigarette, what was the thing called? A pack detonator. That means you'd use that to set off explosives, and a comb compass. 2 of these things were not real. They come from movies. The other 3 were real. What do you think is real? Or let's do the other way. Let's do the 2 that aren't. Which 2 do you think are not real? Let's put it in the chat. Which ones do you think are fake ones? Not really real. Giving you a few seconds here to come up with what you think, which ones. So if you just give me one, which one of the, just come up with one of them. Okay, we've got 2 compasses. So we've got some here say the comb compass and the pipe pistol aren't real. The toothpaste isn't real. Toothpaste and the comb, cigarette. I showed this to my husband, by the way, and he did not get them. He got one of them. He didn't get both of them. It's not that easy. All right, I'm seeing lots of good guesses here. Let me tell you, the ones that weren't real, the toothpaste tube of plastic explosives, that's just from a movie, and the cigarette pack detonator is just from a movie. The pipe pistol there really was. You just had to like unscrew the top of it and the whole thing turned into a pistol. The comb compass, that was what my husband thought was fake, but it actually was real. You kind of broke it open and inside was a flat compass. And of course, the button compass was a fairly easy way of actually doing it. So those are some of the gadgets. The spies really did have gadgets. Right, now let me talk about Captain Hamish and Gustav, whose nickname was Guy Beeler. So Captain Hamish, he grew up in England, in Scotland actually, in Edinburgh. And when the war started, he first went to just fight as a foot soldier. He came back from the initial fighting and then trained to fly some of the fighter jets. And he loved action. So he was having a blast. Okay, if you can do that in the war, but he was enjoying being part and being right there in the thick of all action. But then something happened that forced him to stop being a pilot. Not a very exciting thing to happen, but he had sinus problems. Do any of you have sinus problems? He had sinus problems. And when your nose is hurt, sinuses affect your nose and your ears, and it's not nice to fly. If you have a blocked sinus and you go in an airplane, it's not good. So he couldn't keep flying. So he was frustrated. So he came back, and then he thought, well, what's the next most exciting thing to do? He thought, well, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and join the SOE because that's exciting to go and be a secret agent. And he started training. And the people training him realized that not only was he really good at everything to do with explosives, but he was also a great leader and he'd make a really good trainer. So they sent him to Camp X as a trainer. One of the people he trained there was Gustav Beeler. Gustav Beeler he'd grown up in Switzerland, and he then moved to Canada when he was 20. He was married and he had 2 young children. And he then went to fight in the war as well. And he went to Camp X for about 5 weeks to get trained in explosives. He was really good. And when they then parachuted him into France, behind the enemy lines, because France was occupied by Germany. And unfortunately, when he fell, he actually hurt his back. He landed on some rocks. The parachuting didn't go so well, but he kept going. And he had a group of men, and they started blowing up a lot of the communications of the enemy. And they were doing this just before D-Day. And those of you who know more about World War I will know D-Day was the time when the Allies landed on the beaches of Normandy. That's part of France. And they started to take back Europe from the Germans. It was a huge, big, secret affair. And we're not going to go into that now either. But he was he was helping blow up all these different places. He was so well known for what he was doing that the Germans were specifically out to get him, and they eventually did capture him. And unfortunately, he was killed by the Germans. They didn't send him to the gas chambers. They actually admired him so much that they gave him a more hero's death by shooting him, which they didn't often do. So he was seen even by the Germans as being somebody very brave and heroic. But so you can see the people who were trained at Camp X didn't all make it back, as you heard in that video. Now, Captain Hamish also, though, did see some action. In fact, again, before D-Day, they sent him in to do a really specific operation. There was a really big radar antenna, and they knew they needed to take this out because the antenna was helping the Germans to pass messages on. They needed to get rid of all these communications ahead of D-Day, so it would be hard for the Germans to tell other people what was happening, so they couldn't easily fight back. So Captain Hamish and two friends were again parachuted in, and they quickly managed to find where they were meant to go, and they took out the guard, and they set the explosives up around the antenna. The explosives were set to go off 20 minutes later. Why do you think they didn't make it go off immediately? Why do you think they were waiting for 20 minutes? Let's see. Yeah, it was very sad that he didn't make it back. I read a whole story about his daughter. That's Guy Beeler. His daughter has, found out more about her dad only years later. Her mom didn't like talking about it, and she eventually found out about him and found out how brave he was. Okay, very well done. Yes, they gave them time. That 20 minutes was time to get out. That's right. They had to run to get out of the way, except for something went wrong, as things do, and it detonated too early. The good news was they didn't get injured. The bad news was if it detonated early, what do you think is going to happen now? So they're still standing fairly close to this antenna, and what's going to be happening? Okay. They couldn't get away. All right. So the problem was they couldn't get away. So, of course, the Germans all see this explosion and they come running. So they took out the Sten guns, which is what they used to use, and they took out all the Germans, and they actually managed to be successful. And then they ran in the head, and the French resistance, those were the people in France who were fighting quietly against the Germans. Some of the French resistance took them in and hid them until they could actually get away. And then I think he went back to Camp X, but he did get away, and he actually lived until he was about 92. So he did survive the war and carried on going. All right. Okay, can we get this a little bit bigger here? Thank you. One of the things they had to do was simulations. They had to practice doing things before they actually went to do them. Now, here you can see there's a hay cart. They had to practice hiding in a hay cart. What do you think would be really hard about hiding in a bunch of hay in a hay cart? It takes a little while for you guys to type and for me to see it. Uncomfortable, very. Have you ever rolled around in hay? Very, very difficult. Difficult to breathe, yes. It's hot, it's itchy. And sneezing, yes. Those are all the things I was thinking about. I was thinking hot, itchy. You don't want to sneeze because if you sneeze, the enemy knows where you are. So that was one of the things I had to practice. Some of the other things they had to practice was actually dealing with fire and what they had. Hopefully the horses weren't nibbling at them. One of the things when you're out there, obviously the enemy is firing at you. You've got to get used to not panicking when you literally are being fired at with real bullets. And so in many of the training exercises, they actually used live ammunition. It wasn't just blanks. They had to stand in front of a door that was a glass that was actually a bulletproof, so they couldn't kill, but people on the other side would be firing at them with live bullets. And that's kind of freaky to have somebody literally firing at you. They also had to do all those stealth things that you're talking about, like lying and squirming along, and with real bullets being fired above them. And they also had to, remember there were also open fields. They had to learn how to be extremely still in an open field. If you're very still, the enemy can't see you. But if you move, they can see you and shoot you. So now we're going to try again and see how good are you at being a spy. I'm going to now count you down for 30 seconds. It's a long time. You are going to, wherever you are right now, you're going to sit as still as you can be, like your life depended on it. Imagine you are sitting in that field. I'm going to tell you when to start, and you're going to then be really, okay, let's try my watch here. Okay, Brooke, I can't do this. Can you time me down for 30 seconds? I can't see what I'm doing and everything else. Okay, Brooke's going to tell us when to start. And you, for 30 seconds, you're going to sit as still can be. And let's see how many of you can do it. Okay, Brooke, give us when we're ready.
Okay, go.
All right. So we're starting? Sorry, Brooke, did you say start?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just didn't hear
You want me to start again? You want me to say start again?
Oh, I heard you. That's fine. Let them just, I hope you're sitting super, super still. If you didn't start already, then just tell us when our 30 seconds is up.
Okay.
All right. How many of you managed to sit really, really, really still? If you did, say yes in the chat. This is something else you can practice during this week. Practice being so still that nobody can see you. Let's see how many people managed. Yes, no. It's hard. I was trying to sit just as still here as well. It is really hard to sit super, super still. And obviously, there had to be that even in the hay. In the hay, it would have been a little bit more forgiving, but it is hard. And they would have to have sat still for hours on end, perhaps, to save their lives. Oh dear. Okay, this didn't work right. Okay, this was meant to be one at a time, but I'm just going to leave it where it is right now. Don't worry about it. Okay, all the clues are there together. I was going to give you one clue after the other. But who is the person on the left? You were going to slowly get the clues, but now you've got the whole lot. You may need to ask your moms and dads if they can tell who they think that is. Right, the clue is 007. That is not who the person is on the left, though. So maybe if your moms are there, shout out. Who would be this person on the left? Okay, James Bond is the guy to my right is the drawing. That's the drawing. So the person on the left, who do you think he would be? He's not James Bond. It's not Tolkien, but he is an author. Good. Who wrote the James Bond stories? Again, you may need to ask your moms. You probably don't all know this unless you love trivia. Anybody's parents out there know? All right, let me tell you, the guy's name is Ian Fleming. He wrote the books that the movies are now based on. And you know what? He went to Camp X. So a lot of those, so next time you're watching, if you watch a James Bond movie, or if when you're older you watch a James Bond movie, you can know that some of those ideas may really have come from his days at Camp X. Now, you might want to know what he was doing at Camp X. Well, obviously he was training as a spy, and how well did he do? So what happened was I don't know how far he was into the training, but they wanted to see that he actually had it in him to kill somebody, because when you're a spy, you have to be able to do that. So on the campus that they were doing it in the camp, they had one area set up to look like a hotel. He was taken there, so he felt like he was at a hotel, and he was told to go into a room in the hotel, and he had to walk in and he had to shoot the person inside. And he knew that he had real ammunition. It wasn't a blank. He was told he needed to do it. The person in there was an enemy, and he needed to kill them. Just walk in and shoot them. Well, he paced up and down outside. Now, the man inside, by the way, was one very well trained, and that he would not likely have actually been killed. He was one of the trainers. But Ian Fleming walked up and down outside for 2 hours, and he just couldn't do it. And eventually he went back and he said, I can't. I just actually can't kill somebody. And so he didn't get to become a secret agent. Instead, he wrote books about James Bond. There was also another author who was there. Have any of you read James and the Giant Peach? Or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Do you know who wrote those books? Let's see. Anybody knows who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Matilda, that's right. He wrote Matilda too. I'm trying to think who else What are the other books that he wrote? Let's see. Roald Dahl. Yes, we have an answer. Correct. Roald Dahl was also at Camp X. I haven't been able to find out anything about if he actually, much he did with the knowledge. I did kind of look a bit, but there wasn't any cool stories about him and Camp X like there was about Ian Fleming. Okay. Now, this here is, you can see the word there's the Hydra. Now, if you know your Greek mythology, Hydra was a many-headed monster. And they called this room and the equipment in it the Hydra because it could do so many things. The man who put it all together was the guy on the left. Well, left of my screen, whatever's on yours, Bill Hardcastle. He was an expert in everything to do with codes. And this was basically the brain place where they would do the codes, where they do the Morse code. And he found all the parts, set it all up, and he trained the people. He was hoping to actually be out in the field. He was hoping to be in South America because the Germans were quite active in South America. They didn't invade South America, obviously, but there was a lot of German agents there. That's where he wanted to be, but they knew that he was more useful to them here. And they actually did do real encryption and decryption at in Camp X. They weren't just training people, but they actually did some of the spy work there themselves, and they were like working on codes. And the room was a huge big square room, one door only, and the windows were super high at the top. Why do you think the windows, there were only small windows right near the top of the wall? Why do you think the windows were so high up and so small? Anybody got any idea? Why would the windows be up there? Right. Okay, so that people couldn't see in, right? You couldn't have anybody just coming by and snooping. There was no chance of that. They made sure that you weren't anywhere near. Now, I think I'm going to now go, my next one is another video. I think that's, okay. This, I'm going to now switch, I need to now switch back to my shared screen here. Okay, have you got me up there? Now let me just get to the same. I just need to now get through, oops. I'm going to show you now. I love horrible histories. I don't know if you've read any of the books. I'm sure some of you, there's many of you on this call. I'm sure some of you have. And this is a fun one about code breaking in World War II, just to give you a laugh.
Woeful Second World War. During World War II, there could be spies anywhere. You had to watch what you said and what you wrote. So to pass on secret messages, the army had to use secret codes.
So my idea is we write everything backwards. So to the enemy, it will look like complete gobbledygook. It's brilliant. For example, if we were to write the word I, we would do it backwards. Like so. I. Bad example. If we're writing the word madam, we do it backwards like this. If we're writing the word race car, then we'd spell it backwards, which would be...
Yes, I think it might be back to the drawing board with that one, old bean.
Yes, perhaps you're right. I tell you, this secret code lark is a darn tricky business.
Isn't it just?
Well, thanks for nothing.
What? Agent Saunders?
We thought you were in that prison camp at Drancy.
No, I escaped. No thanks to you, idiots.
Steady on now, chap.
Steady on. I've just crossed the whole of occupied France with no money and no map. Did you even get my letter?
Some time ago. I'm afraid it didn't make a great deal of sense.
I used Sergeant Hall's code, just like you said. Escape plans, January 2nd, send map and money. You just read every word after the punctuation, just like we discussed.
Ah, every word after the punctuation.
See, we were reading every word before the punctuation. Please prepare the old goat for wedding.
Why on earth would I say that?
Well, we were rather confused.
As was the goat.
So it turns out you're better at this secret code lark than we are.
Would you mind helping us with this one, old boy?
Ah, yes. Now, we got this letter from Agent Blenkinsop about 3 weeks ago.
And so far we've been unable to work out which code he's been using.
Trapped in Paris, please send help.
Now, what is he trying to tell us?
There's a message in there somewhere.
Oh, I'm going for a bath.
Do you actually think he's trapped in Paris?
All right. Okay. So bring me back on here again. We go on to the next one. So that is some fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I always have a good laugh when I'm watching horrible histories. Now you're going to now have a chance to see how good you are. All right. Now, okay, Brooke. Why is this thing not moving to the next one? Okay. There we go. Okay. There is a message I want you to decode. Do any of you have any idea how to decode this? I give you a little chance to look at this, and then I'm going to give you some clues. I'll tell you now, so that you know, this is a Caesar shift cipher. All right? It's a Caesar shift cipher. Any of you know what a Caesar shift cipher is? Have any of you done any decoding? If you are, you can just say it straight away. But I'm going to tell you this. Yeah, it's a Caesar code. And I'll tell you also this, because I'm feeling very kind towards you, is that it's a shift of 3 letters. I suggest what you'll do with your pencil and paper is quickly write down the alphabet. Let's write the whole alphabet down. And it's going to be 3 letters, either forward or backwards. In a minute, I'll tell you which one, but see if just you can actually figure out. As soon as you work out the first word, then you'll know whether it's 3 forward or 3 backwards. Basically, what you're going to be doing is you're going to take the P and move 3 letters forward or 3 letters back. And then whatever it is, you're going to do the same thing the whole way through. And you'll do the same with the next letter, and you'll keep doing that until you actually decode it. Yes, I see people saying it's a wheel code. It's 3. You're going to move 3. It's a shift of 3. Yes, so if you actually had those wheels, which you don't have, so you're just going to be writing it down, you can do those where you have like a wheel inside and you have a bigger wheel outside, and then you just line them up. So it's nice and easy if you have... You don't have to do this. Nobody has to do this. I'm not watching you, but give it a shot. Let's see who can actually decipher this. It's not super hard. Once you get if you just learn, if you can figure out if it's forward or backwards, and in 2 seconds, I'm going to tell you which one it is, then you're just going to add 3 letters or take away 3 letters from each letter. And you can see that the word, so it's a 4-letter word, a 2-letter word. I didn't just run them all together. I was kind so that you could easily see what it is. Okay, I'm going to tell you, if you haven't figured it out now, I'm going to tell you it's 3 backwards. So take P and go 3 letters backwards. And then you should start to get this. Let's see. Once you get it, you can put it in the chat. I'm going to wait a few minutes. I'm not going to just keep them going. This is a really simple code, and they wouldn't have used codes that were quite so simple because it would have been too easy to crack. They did use, you could see one of the World War II ones, the ones after the punctuation marks, that was one of them. And there were far more difficult ones. Of course, the Germans used a fancy machine called the Enigma, which then the Polish actually helped the British to crack. But yes, there we go. James, I see we have an answer there. Well done, James. I think you're the first one that I'm seeing up there. Well done. Meet me behind the barn tonight. Because if you go 3 letters back from P, it's an M. 3 letters back from H is an E. So it's M-E-E. 3 letters back from H is T. So that's how it works. If you like this, you can find code books and things. I love codes and playing around with them. They're a lot of fun. All right, let's go to the next one. Now, here you can see there's some more training. What do you think this guy is training for? Yeah, a lot of you got that last one right. Well done. That was really good going. A lot of you managed to solve it in quite a short period of time. If you didn't solve it, don't worry. You didn't have much time and you've never done this before. It is quite, he's swinging. Nope, he's not swinging. He's not playing Tarzan. Okay, I start to see. James has got it. I think Cambria saw put it there. They're training for jumping out of a plane. Yes, they're having parachute practice. This was 88 feet high. You can see there was no railings or anything on it. So they did obviously grab a rope and obviously swing down, but they were practicing jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. And this is how they did it, off of this really, really high thing. So some of you may have liked that. At this point, I would have gone home. There is no way I'm jumping off something so high, even if I'm swinging with a rope with it. I'm not ever going to be doing bungee jumping either. Next thing, right at the beginning, many of you said you'd need to learn how to do disguises. You talked about that. They did. And get your pen and paper again, and I want you to now match up. You've got 6 on the side, and then you've got A, B, C, D, E, F. Match up. What do you think doing the thing on the left achieved? So you're going to say, folded newspapers in shoes, what did that achieve? So you'll have 1 and then a letter. That's all you need to write down. So spend a little bit of time going through these and say, folded newspapers and shoes, what do you think that would have achieved? Wads of cotton in your cheeks, what did that achieve? So it's just a matching. So you'll have each number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we'll each match up with one thing on the right-hand side. There's no tricks. Give you a few minutes to match up the disguises. Now, while you're thinking about that, they would really have to know where they were going. Like I read one story about a guy in Camp X who knew he was going to Hungary. And so for a while before that, they trained them in everything about Hungary, so that even the clothes they would put on, they'd be careful that if you were pretending to be German, for instance, that you weren't wearing British clothes, because that could give you away. So they would have to really be very careful with even just like obvious things like the clothes you wear. You'd have to do it. Yes, thank you. Moving me away so you can see the stovepipe soot. Soot, by the way, is the stuff that you get in chimneys, the old-fashioned chimneys. Yours today, you probably have a fake one, but they'd have real ones in those days. Okay. As I said, they didn't have enough time to actually learn the foreign languages. So often, if you like, remember that Canadians, most Canadians can speak French, so they would often go off and pretend to be French and be wandering around France because they'd fit in there better. But they did also need people to go behind the enemy lines and keep out of the way. All right, are you all done? Let's go. Can I move on to the actual answers? And let's see what they are. It's my blank slide. Okay, so here's the answers. So the folded newspapers in the shoes was to make you look taller. So it was 1E. Wads of cotton in your cheeks, that made your face fatter. So that's 2C. The rusty iron rubbed on your skin, that would change your skin color. That's 3B. Number 4, button the pants to your vest, that actually created a stoop because it was kind of like would pull you over. You were pulling yourself up. So that was 4F. Hoist your trousers up and tighten your belt, that made your legs look longer. So it's 5D. And 6, the stovepipe soot was to change your hair color. That was 6A. Did anybody get all of those correct? Let's see if... Well done if you got them all right. The ones that were a little tricky were the ones to do with your legs, because there were 3 related to your legs. But can you imagine how uncomfortable some of these things may have been? Okay, well done if you got them all right. I'm not sure I would have got them all right. But these were definitely things that they all did. I got all these ideas from actual websites that were talking about what happened at Camp X. Okay, the war did come to an end. First of all, the war with Germany, and then later the war with Japan, because Japan had by this stage entered the war, which we haven't talked about that either. But before the war ended even, they actually stopped training people. In 1944, they stopped training people at Camp X because they'd now trained so many special agents they didn't need anymore, and so they stopped the training there. 1945 was a year that the war ended. But Camp X was still around, and I'm now going to flip back to my other screen, and I'm going to show you a little video of a simulation that was done afterwards. So this was done in modern days, but when the war actually came to an end, they had to tell, England had to tell Camp X that the war, at least against Germany, was over. And, they didn't have email in those days. They didn't have texting in those days. So let's first get some guesses. How do you think they told them that the war was over? Now, obviously, yes, they did have telephones, but they were also doing it in a secure fashion. So what do you think they did? Yeah, the war started in 1945. Well done, those people that know that. Okay. What do you think? How do you think they sent the message? And then we're going to look and see if you're right. How do you think Britain, and Bletchley Park was the head of the spy world in England. That was where it was set up. It wasn't the training part. I said there was a different area where they trained, but Bletchley Park was where all the main encryption and decryption, everything was happening that Churchill had set up. And Bletchley Park sent Camp X the thing. Okay, we had Telegram. Okay. I think some of you are onto it. So let me switch back on to my slides. If I can get back to it. Right, let me just get this again. Okay, let's get through to the video.
I'm here live from Bletchley Park. We're doing a retransmission of the VE Day transmission from May 8th, 1945. We have Andy here manning the Morse code, and we're trying our best to bounce this signal off the ionosphere back to Camp X in Whitby.
So now we're at Camp Whitby, Camp X. They call it Camp Whitby here.
Commanding officer, we've received an OU message from Bletchley Park in England. A representative of the German High Command signed the unconditional surrender of all German land, sea, and air forces in Europe to the Allied Expeditionary Force and simultaneously to the Soviet High Command at 1400 hours Central European Time, May 7th, 1945. General Suslaperev signed for the Russians.
Okay, we can stop that. All right, let me go back onto my slides here again. If you can just pull the slides up. Yeah. So you can see they use Morse code, and this is now going to be your Brooke. Again, I'm just struggling to get my slide to move on. Back to, okay, I don't need to screen share anymore. Right, okay. All right, okay, let's do that. Okay, so here now, Brooke, can you move my picture away? Sorry, I need to access the bottom of the screen. Put my picture. Thank you. Here is Morse code. It's dots and dashes. I'm sure you probably all knew about that. You guys are a smart bunch here. Now, oh, this might not work. Ha ha ha. But let me just, you can just stay on that screen. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to move off. I'm now going to play you Morse code. I'm going to tell you it's exactly one word of 4 letters. So it's real easy and short. Watch that. Okay, so hopefully, Brooke, I don't know if it's going to move me off here. If it does, it doesn't really matter, I suppose. I am going to play you Morse code. All right, I want you to write down. You saw how the Morse code operator there, he sat there and was writing as he was listening. Listen carefully, and I'm going to play again and see if you can write down. Every time there's a dot, write the dots, and every time there's a dash, write the dash, and then see if you can figure out what the letters are. Oops. Okay, I don't want you to go there yet. Hovering over it here. I paid for you one more time. Right, okay. Okay. Okay, can you hear me back to StreamYard? Yeah. I'm guessing you probably didn't figure out what it was, so I'm going to help you, and I'm going to give you that. So write it down. That's what you actually were hearing. There were actually 4 short ones, a pause, 1 short one, a short, long, short, short, and then a pause and short, long, long, long. It was very fast, I know. But you saw in that video that that guy was literally listening at that speed and writing down what it was. I couldn't even, I mean, I tried. I mean, I knew what I went and found a place that created this. And I knew what the word was, and I still couldn't hear it. Even knowing the answer, I couldn't get it. But now with this is slower. So if you've written all this down, okay, if you've all written that down, I'm now going to switch back so you can see what the Morse code is. So make sure you've got that written down, and I'm going to take you back. Yes, there we go. I've always done Morse code when I've actually been given the dots and dashes. Then it's not so hard when you've got a table like this and you've got the dots and dashes, but listening to it is extremely challenging. So you realize how good they were that they could just listen. And yeah, he did it all his life. I know they really well. I mean, not all his life, but for enough years, they were trained so well they could listen and they could just write it down. And obviously, the people transmitting had to be really good. You had to be really careful that you didn't hit one more dot when it wasn't meant to be a dash, because then the whole word could mean something different. Ah, we've got some people that are solving it. Yes, the word was help. Well done if you got that. I'm sure none of you actually got it from listening. If you did, then I'm really amazed, because I said I couldn't get it even though I knew what I'd actually done. It was extremely difficult. I just wanted you to get the feel for how amazing it was what these people were doing. Okay. And we already saw in the chat, I know some of you have been here. It's now Camp X. You can still go and visit it and you can do a walking tour. It's called Intrepid Park. After the man who actually set it up, we didn't even talk about him. William Stevenson was the guy who actually started the whole thing and set it all up. And his nickname was Intrepid. So after him, they've called it Intrepid Park. And there is now a memorial to all the people who actually went and trained there and then fought to preserve world peace and to conquer Hitler and to get to create a world that you've now been born into that is much better place than if Hitler had actually won. And so if you're ever up in Canada and you get the chance and you're on near Lake Ontario, maybe go and check out Intrepid Park. I know I really want to go. Now you've heard all about it. They did level all the buildings. The buildings are not there anymore. They were worried that there might be some explosives that hadn't been exploded, so they just like bulldozed the whole area, and instead they just went to put up this memorial. So I hope you learned something new about World War II and this story, which many people don't know about. And yet the men who were trained here at Camp X were extremely important in winning World War II for the Allies. And it was, I didn't even say that at the beginning, but you have the Axis and the Allies, and the Allies actually did eventually win, and that was helped on by these people who trained at Camp X and who trained the people who were the trainers. So it was great having you all on here. Thank you for being such an interactive bunch. I was worried. I've never done anything like this before, where you were just in the chat and you really came through. Every one of you who typed in an answer, I saw most of it as I was scrolling by. I couldn't mention all of you, but it was amazing seeing all your answers and seeing your interaction. And I really had fun doing this, and I hope you had fun being here too.
That was great. That was probably one of my favorite classes that we've had so far. So thank you so much, Meryl. Thank you. We are done for today, guys, but don't forget, we will have a live class coming up soon. I should have had my schedule pulled up. Let me see. Oh, I have it written down. Our next live class, today's the 6th, will be on next Thursday. Yes, next Thursday at 2 p.m. I can't tell you who it is because I don't remember right now and I don't have the schedule pulled up. But tell your parents to be watching our Facebook, watching our Instagram, watching our emails so that you guys can come and join us again. If you want more, tell your parents to go check out Meryl at Funda Funda. I included the link to those, let's see. Meryl exclusively gave us some coupons for more on these courses, and I added them to the chat earlier, but I know we've had so much going on. I'm going to add them again here now, and you can get those 2 products that she's offering for $5 a piece if you use those codes. So thank you guys for coming in with us. And again, let us know how you loved it. Let us know what's going on. Share this with your friends, your parents, your community. Let them know that we're going to be doing these live classes for the next couple of weeks as we gear up for the homeschool collection. And again, Meryl, thank you for joining us live.
You're welcome.
All right. We will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.